They were at a party that his business partner had organized, and Lily was clinging to him while he was distracted. Suddenly, the light went out, and he felt Lily hugging him. He gave her a hug in return. At first, he had no idea what had happened until he heard gunshots everywhere and then lights came on, revealing masked men surrounding everyone. Everyone was shocked and confused. He was trying to comprehend what was happening when someone grabbed him from behind and placed a pistol to his head. Then the lights went out once again as he was being pulled. He attempted to fight his way out, but the man was too powerful for him to move from where he was being held. He yelled as the man released his hold on his mouth, but it was quickly resealed when he replaced it with a handkerchief. He continued to struggle for another 5 minutes until succumbing to exhaustion. He awakened chained to a chair in a room that was dark and vast, with 2 big windows that had strong, rusty bars. The glass was broken, but the room was completely dark. Not even a sliver of light could enter through the windows, which were covered with hard wooden planks. The air inside was the reverse of the air outside, stale, pungent, and made one want to throw up. Long steel tables on each side of the room featured glittering metal weapons such as knives, blades, daggers, and swords, as well as various types of firearms, crossbows, and chains. These were logical reasons for them to be there, but in addition, there were office supplies, cooking utensils, toolkit items, wood saws, and other things that made one wonder why they were ever there in the first place. The walls were ancient, bloody, and painted over with faded paint. A faintly illuminated lamp that was suspended from the ceiling flickered numerous times and created an unnerving contrast of light and blackness in the space. He blinked in an effort to get used to the view. Where am? How come I'm here? He stated searching the area for a way out while attempting to move, but was restrained by chains and handcuffs to a pillar, forcing him to remain upright. He turns around once again to find 3 completely dressed men in black who are intently observing him as they approach, making him tremble. He hadn't eaten or drunk anything other than punches for 3 days. His body was covered in blood, and blood was oozing from his lips. He was immobilized, and his only thought was whether he would ever be able to go. Who had done this to him, and why? Will he be sought after by his family? Are they going to worry? He chuckled, removing those thoughts. If it was YN, she would have been so worried about me. But I broke her. I am sorry, please don't hate me too much, I'll always love you. He murmured while looking down, but flinched when someone entered the room. Fearing for his safety, he quickly closed his eyes, but when he opened them again, he saw that they were dragging another man in his 30s who was injured and gasping for air. They then tied him to a pillar close to him and began punching him. He has been here for an unknown number of days. It is likely the 2nd week. He has no idea what these people want from him, and whenever he inquires, they always respond, "You betrayed mistress." He is unaware of the identity of the supposed mistress. The only person he knows he betrayed is his love Yin, and he wishes he could leave this place so he could at least apologize to her. His body is failing him. He has gone days without food or water, and he wonders why the person next to him was in worse shape. He was contemplating how to leave when the door opened again, but this time it was a girl instead of the usual 4 black-suited men. Her long hair was neatly styled on one side of her shoulder while the rest were at the back. She moved to the corner of the room as the suited men went behind her and took a seat on a couch that was in the room's right corner. Judging from the voice, it seemed as though she was wearing heels. Even though Taehyung couldn't see her, the intensity she radiated made everyone tremble as he stared up at her. His soul has left his body. He felt blood being pulled out of his body and could hear his heartbeat thundering in his ears. Who are we seeing today, oh my god? The girl approached the shackled guy gently, knelt before him, and lifted his face by putting her index finger under his chin. That voice, hold on. YYN. Yin hate me, what are you thinking? She must be someplace out there. He looked at the girl who was distant from the light hanging on top of the man in his 30s and muttered to himself. As long as you don't collaborate, I'll take the simple route. Choose carefully because I don't tend to provide options very frequently. She sat down on the same monochromatic gray couch after straightening her back, crossing her legs. You have 3 seconds. Speak now. She talked in a bored manner as she shifted the lengthy strands from her shoulders to her back. The only thing the victim could say was, I don't know anything. A frustrated expression could be seen on the girl's face as she scratched her head with her finger. She let out a heavy sigh of disappointment at herself for squandering 3 seconds in a row. She got up from where she was sitting and sauntering leisurely toward the bound lad. She knelt down and sat on her tiptoes in front of him. You know, I was considering having lovely, but I was being gentle, but he doesn't fucking like it. He wants tough things. She shook her head, her face still hidden from him, but her voice was sending him thrills and butterflies at the same time. And now that he was certain she wasn't his yin, what was he even thinking? He definitely misses hearing and seeing her everywhere. With a deep sneer on her face that radiated the malice simmering inside, the girl approached the table while tracing her toys. She moved around the chair, brought a small, sharp knife that glittered beautifully in the flickering light, flung it back, and then came back to the man. She ran her fingertips down the back of his neck and slid the knife forward onto his chest. You're a brave person, and I adore bold wenches like you. She knelt down and put her lips up on the boy's ear. She said seductively, so wonderful to play, sending shivers down both of their spines, but he stayed cool, doing his best to conceal his fear. Her back was turned to Taehyung since she knew too well that her special visitor was also present, but Taehyung had no idea who she was. She went down and nibbled on his lobe, which caused the lad to tremble slightly. She then wrapped her arms around his neck and laid her chin on his shoulder. She slid down and pressed the knife on his belly button, twisting it and making him cry harder. She had him scream out loud by tracing the knife on his bare skin, which was met with nothing but a grin from her. She left the man while engraving a diamond with the word "dirty diamonds" engraved on it. Taehyung shook violently in shock at what he saw. The man was laying there motionless, his eyes out of their sockets, his nails and hand were sliced, and not a single inch of his body was blood-free. Tsk, I loathe traitors in these 2 weeks. Aside from beating him, the men did tell him that he betrayed their young mistress, and now he was pretty sure this girl was their mistress. Taehyung shivered more when the girl came into the light, but his expression instantly changed when her face was now visible, and only one word came out of his mouth. YN.
I hate all this overthinking. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to a world of silver. No more heartbreaks, tears, painkillers. Take me somewhere unfamiliar. Bring me back to where we started.
Taehyung shivered more when the girl came into the light, but his expression instantly changed when her face was now visible, and only one word came out of his mouth. YN. She smirked as she turned to face him and then laughed. She approached him and said, "Darsha, my sweet boyfriend, it's Darsha," which made him tremble. He shook his head and his eyes started to well up with tears as she asked, "So did you like the concert, my lovely boyfriend?" She traced his jaw with the bloody knife. "I'm sorry, please don't kill me," she giggled at what he said while his breath was trembling. "You're definitely something, aren't you?" She laughed. "I'm not going to kill you, not that quickly." She smirked and replied. "Mark." She summoned a man who appeared in front of her in an instant. "Take my special guest into my bedroom," she said. "Going," she announced, but her phone rang. Glancing at the caller ID and grinning, she put the phone on speaker and turned to face Taehyung, who was staring at her in shock and terror. "Hello, Atlas." A guy on the other side said, "Mistress, Lily just got out of the hospital with Kim Dae-hyun and his wife. Taehyung writhed in his chains, seeking to get free of them. No, don't harm them in any way." His words, delivered with tears in his eyes, were met with a murky chuckle. "Watch them closely and await my command," she said, ending the phone and vanishing into the shadows. The big man pulled Taehyung up hard, and he continued to stomp around, only to get punched by them. Evan stayed there, not daring to move, until YN punched him in the face, knocking him across the room. She then quickly moved closer to him before striking him once again in the face. "How dare you touch him? Who told you to beat him? You only had to lock him up." She said that after viciously striking him until he passed out, she gave him one more kick before calling her men to take him to the hospital. She shut him up in that chamber only because she intended to make him fear her, but she was unaware that Evan hadn't asked the guards not to hurt him. Of course, it was their responsibility to serve anybody in the Bastille they were assigned, unless Evan or their mistress instructed them otherwise. Why the hell would she punch her most trusted man for someone as unworthy as him? Damn, that man is a betrayer. Why the hell did you punch Evan for him? He was only doing his job, and you brought him here to hate him and move on from him, not to show sympathy and love to him. Fuck this shit. You have to put him through the same physical and emotional pain that he put you through. How dare he to insult you like that? Keep that shit in your mind. She scolded herself, going to her room. She entered the room and immediately felt her blood start to boil at seeing him sitting on her bed staring down at his hand. Without thinking, she pushed him away, causing him to moan as his wounds were once more touched. She clenched her teeth and shouted, "How dare you sit on my bed," making him shudder. He attempted to speak, "YN," but she violently grabbed his hair, causing him to weep once again. "I'm no longer your Y or N." She spoke while tightening her grasp on his hair. "And don't you dare touch my bed again. I don't want pathetic betrayers on my bed. I hate your smell," she said roughly, breaking his heart. She then pressed a button, and a maid ran in. "I don't want him to die this soon, so Martha, please treat him and make sure he eats. Change this bedsheet as well. I don't want anything to be left undisturbed. Everything should be clean, especially his smell." They both recoiled as she said harshly and slammed the door behind her. When he heard footsteps, he looked up to see her as stunning as always. Her wet hair was falling over her shoulder, water droplets adorned her face, and the only thing missing was her stunning smile because her eyes only revealed coldness. She walked up to him and took his hand, which he didn't object to since he missed her touch, her voice, and everything about her, and now that he was receiving it, it wasn't what he wanted. He shuddered as he stared into her icy, dark eyes, for she had taken away his freedom. Unaware of what was happening, she forced him to sit on the floor and kneel in front of her. He frowned and looked at her as she giggled sinisterly. I can't risk having you leave now, can I? Despite the fact that I can have you back at any time. She grinned as she questioned him in a threatening tone, causing him to shudder once more. Why, baby? Why don't you scream at me right now? Incite your buddies to mock me? He broke into tears as she inquired with a pout. Oh, how he regrets it. Only he knows that throughout the months, he hasn't stopped blaming himself for not treating her properly. I'm sorry, he said as he tried to wipe a tear from his eye but found that his wrists were shackled to the couch. Yin laughed wildly when she saw his astonished expression, and he wondered if she laughed at his apology. I'm very sorry, I swear. She rolled her eyes and stood up as he spoke, but he held her wrist in his bound hands while staring at her with tear-filled eyes. I'm very sorry I missed you, 𝘗𝘢𝘳𝘳. I missed you so much, but I didn't, she responded, suppressing her fury by biting her inner cheek. Why then? She glanced at him and raised an eyebrow as he murmured and started to cry. Huh, she inquired. So why did you bring me here? She laughed in response to his question and gave him a small flush to the cheeks. Because I want revenge. With a smile and widening eyes, she said, I wanted to make you experience the same heartbreaks that you made me go through. I wanted to hate you. I wanted to be reminded every time I saw you that loving you was a mistake, and I wanted to hate you even more than before. I wanted to understand that this was the result of loving some scum who didn't deserve my love. She shouted angrily, ripping his hands away, and left the room. He had no idea how each word she spoke had cut through his heart, shattering it. He sat there, pulling his knees to his head as his tears continued to pour. Please don't hate me. I'm sorry. I love you. Please don't hate me, he continued rambling till the time was lost.